When we think of Hyannisport, Massachusetts, a certain image comes to mind: windswept beaches, sailboats gliding across the water, and the sprawling, iconic Kennedy compound. It's a place synonymous with a certain kind of American royalty, a world of politics, power, and a mythologized era we call Camelot. It's the landscape of presidents and senators, a place that shaped a dynasty. But just down the road, in the neighboring town of West Hyannisport, another American story was taking shape, one forged not in the halls of power, but in the crucible of quiet patriotism and unwavering resolve. This story isn't about a political dynasty, it's about a warrior ethos. It's about a local boy who grew up in the shadow of that great political family, but whose dreams weren't of the Oval Office. His dreams were of the sea, of the night, and of earning a place among the most elite fighting force the world has ever known. This is the story of Kevin Houston, a name you may not know, but one that is etched into the honor roll of American heroes. He was a boy from the Cape who became a man of the world, a Navy SEAL who reached the absolute pinnacle of his profession. His life was a testament to a different kind of service, a different kind of sacrifice, and his death in a dusty valley halfway around the world would become a symbol of the immense price of that service in the 21st century. This is not the story of Camelot's heirs, but of its protectors, the story of a man who answered the call and paid the ultimate price, a hero from Kennedy country. To understand Kevin Houston, you have to understand the place that made him. The Cape Cod of the 1970s and 80s, when Kevin was growing up, was a place of fascinating contrasts. On one hand, there was the ever-present aura of the Kennedys. Their compound in Hyannisport was a landmark, a symbol of a glamorous, tragic, and powerful past. The Kennedys were the local legends, a family whose story was woven into the fabric of the community. Their ethos, famously articulated by President John F. Kennedy, was one of public service, of asking what you could do for your country. But alongside this world of wealth and political legacy was another Cape Cod, the world of working-class families, fishermen, small business owners, and year-round residents. This was a community grounded in grit, hard work, and a fierce, unpretentious patriotism. It was a place where the changing seasons, not the political seasons, dictated the rhythm of life. It was here, in West Hyannisport, that Kevin Houston was born on September 20th, 1975. He grew up in a world where the ideals of Camelot were in the air, the realities of life were much more down to earth. The America of his childhood was one grappling with its identity in the wake of the Vietnam War. The unblemished optimism of the 60s had faded, replaced by a more sober understanding of the world and America's place in it. For many, this era fostered a renewed and perhaps more profound sense of duty. It wasn't about glamour or political ambition. It was about a core belief in service to the nation. It was in this environment that 9-year-old Kevin Houston found his calling. It wasn't a poster of a politician on his wall that inspired him, but the stories of the U.S. Navy SEALs. He learned about these silent warriors, men who operated in the shadows, who pushed their bodies and minds to the absolute limit in the defense of their country. For a boy from the coast, a kid who loved the water, the idea of being a frogman, a member of the sea, air, and land teams, captured his imagination completely. This wasn't a passing childhood fancy. It became the singular driving ambition of his life. While his peers were thinking about high school sports or what they wanted to do after graduation, Kevin was focused on one thing: preparing himself for the ordeal known as BUDS, or Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL Training. It's a place designed to break even the strongest men, a test where more than 80% of candidates fail. Yet for young Kevin Houston, it wasn't a deterrent. It was the destination. His childhood on the Cape, with its blend of idyllic scenery and hard-working values, didn't create a politician. It created a warrior in waiting, a boy whose American dream had nothing to do with power and everything to do with sacrifice. Kevin Houston's journey from a determined kid on Cape Cod to one of the world's most elite operators was a testament to his relentless focus. The dream that took root when he was 9 years old became the blueprint for his entire young adult life. After graduating from Barnstable High School, he didn't waste any time. In 1995, at the age of 20, he enlisted in the United States Navy, taking the first concrete step toward the goal that had defined him for over a decade. His initial years in the Navy were about preparation. He knew that to even have a chance at Bud S, he needed to be in peak physical and mental condition. He served, he trained, and he waited for his shot. That shot came in 1998 when he was accepted into Bud S Class 221. For those unfamiliar, Bud S is 6 months of what can only be described as structured, soul-crushing torture. It is a relentless physical and mental beatdown designed to weed out anyone who lacks the unique combination of physical endurance, mental fortitude, and unwavering teamwork that defines a SEAL. Trainees are constantly cold, wet, sandy, and sleep-deprived. They run for miles in loose sand, swim in the frigid Pacific, and carry heavy rubber boats for what seems like an eternity. The infamous Hell Week, 5.5 days of continuous training on less than 4 hours of total sleep, is the heart of the ordeal, a crucible where a man discovers what he is truly made of. Kevin Houston endured it all. He graduated with Class 221 in 1999, earning the coveted Trident insignia that marked him as a Navy SEAL. This achievement alone placed him in a rare brotherhood. But for Kevin, it was just the beginning. His first assignment was to SEAL Team 4, based in Little Creek, Virginia. There, he honed his craft, specializing in operations in Central and South America. He was learning the trade, becoming an expert in unconventional warfare, and building a reputation as a quiet, competent, and utterly dependable operator. He served with Team 4 for several years, deploying and developing his skills. But there is a hierarchy even within the elite world of the SEALs. At the very top is a unit so secret that the government for years refused to even acknowledge its existence. The Naval Special Warfare Development Group, universally known as DevGRU, or the legendary SEAL Team 6. This is the unit responsible for the nation's most sensitive and dangerous counterterrorism missions. It is comprised of the best, operators handpicked from the existing SEAL teams for their experience, maturity, and superlative skills. To be selected for DevGRU is the highest honor a SEAL can achieve. The selection process, known as Green Team, is another grueling test designed to see if an experienced SEAL has the extra measure of intelligence, problem-solving ability, and psychological stability to operate at the highest level. In early 2008, after years of distinguished service, Kevin Houston was selected for and successfully completed Green Team. He had reached the pinnacle. He was now a member of SEAL Team 6. His entry into DevGRU coincided with the height of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. As a member of this elite unit, he was thrust into the very heart of the fight. He completed 4 combat deployments to both theaters of war. He was no longer training on the beaches of Virginia. He was hunting high-value targets in the mountains of the Hindu Kush and the dusty streets of Iraqi cities. His work was dangerous, clandestine, and carried the highest possible stakes. For his actions in combat, he was awarded 2 Bronze Star Medals with the V device for valor, a decoration that signifies direct participation in acts of heroism involving conflict with an armed enemy. He was also awarded the Purple Heart, indicating he had been wounded in action. Over his career, he amassed more than 15 other medals and awards, each one a testament to his courage and dedicated service. But the medals only tell part of the story. The real story was the man who earned them. By 2011, Petty Officer First Class Kevin Houston was a seasoned 35-year-old veteran operator. He was married to the love of his life, Megan, and was a father to 3 young children. He had achieved the dream he had set for himself as a 9-year-old boy. He was a husband, a father, and one of the most elite special operators on the planet. He was at the top of his game, living a life of purpose and consequence, a life dedicated to protecting the nation he loved. Behind the decorated warrior, the elite operator who moved in the world's most dangerous shadows, there was Kevin Houston, the man. And to understand the depth of the loss that was to come, you have to know the man his family and friends loved. His comrades in the SEAL teams remember him as the quintessential quiet professional. He wasn't loud or boastful. He carried himself with a calm confidence that inspired trust in those around him. In a profession filled with alpha personalities, Kevin's strength was in his steadiness, his unshakable composure under pressure. His wife, Megan, has shared memories that paint a picture of a man who managed the extraordinary feat of balancing 2 completely different worlds. One moment, he was a DevGru assaulter preparing for a high-stakes mission halfway around the world. The next, he was home, completely present, a devoted husband, and a fun-loving father to his 3 children, a daughter and 2 sons. He shielded them from the harsh realities of his job. At home, he wasn't an operator, he was just dad. He was the guy who would get on the floor and play with them, the man whose return from deployment was the single most joyous event in their young lives. There's a particularly humanizing detail that Megan shared in an interview. She said that before he left for his final deployment, Kevin was home for about a month, and during that time, he did something he'd never done before. He meticulously went through all of their finances, making sure she knew where everything was, how everything worked. He made sure she had all the passwords and account information. At the time, she thought it was just him being organized, being responsible. In hindsight, it was a quiet act of profound love and foresight, a husband making sure his family would be taken care of if the unthinkable happened. He was preparing his wife for a future he prayed she would never have to face. It was a silent act of love, more powerful than any medal. His friends from Cape Cod remember a loyal, down-to-earth guy who never changed, no matter how extraordinary his life became. When he came home, he wasn't Kevin Houston, SEAL Team 6. He was just Kev, the kid they grew up with. He'd hang out, tell jokes, and deflect any questions about his work with a smile and a change of subject. His humility was one of his most defining characteristics. He believed in the mission, not the glory. One friend from high school recalled a story that perfectly captures his character. They were at a party, and someone was asking Kevin about being a SEAL. The person was being a bit loud, trying to get war stories out of him. Kevin didn't get angry or pretentious. He just smiled, put his arm around his friend, and said, "Man, I'm just a guy from the Cape. Let's talk about the Red Sox." He never saw himself as better than anyone else. His service was a duty, not a status symbol. This deep sense of humility was woven into the fabric of his being. He was intensely proud to be a SEAL, but he saw it as a privilege to serve, not a platform for personal acclaim. He embodied the ethos of the silent professional. The deed is all, not the glory. This dedication came at a cost, not just in the danger he faced, but in the time spent away from his family. Every deployment meant months of missed moments, Birthdays, holidays, first steps, and school plays. It's a sacrifice every military family knows intimately. For Kevin and Megan, it was their reality for years. Their love was strong enough to bridge the thousands of miles that separated them, sustained by satellite phone calls and the promise of homecoming. In the summer of 2011, Kevin was on another deployment in Afghanistan. He was at the peak of his abilities, a respected and experienced operator doing the job he was born to do. He had a loving wife and 3 beautiful children waiting for him back in Virginia. He had everything to live for, and he was exactly where he wanted to be, serving at the tip of the spear, standing watch over a nation, a world away from the quiet shores of Cape Cod, where his dream began. The night of August 5th, 2011 was dark in the Tangi Valley of Wardak Province, Afghanistan. This remote, rugged valley was a known Taliban stronghold, a dangerous place that coalition forces had been trying to pacify for years. Earlier in the evening, a unit of U.S. Army Rangers had come under fire while pursuing a high-level Taliban leader. They were pinned down and they needed help. The call went out for a Quick Reaction Force, or QRF. The mission fell to the men of SEAL Team 6. A group of operators, including Kevin Houston, boarded a U.S. Army Chinook helicopter, a lumbering twin-rotor workhorse with the call sign Extortion 17. It was a mixed group. On board were 17 Navy SEALs, 5 Naval Special Warfare Support personnel, 3 Air Force Special Operations personnel, and a 5-man Army air crew, along with a military working dog named Bart. In total, 30 American service members and 1 Afghan interpreter were on that helicopter, flying into the heart of a hornet's nest to save their fellow soldiers. As Extortion 17 approached the landing zone around 2:30 a.m. on August 6th, the valley erupted. A Taliban fighter hidden on a hillside fired a rocket-propelled grenade. The RPG struck one of the Chinook's rear rotor blades. In an instant, the massive helicopter, weighing over 10 tons, spiraled out of control and crashed into a dry riverbed below, exploding in a massive fireball. There were no survivors. In a single devastating moment, the United States military suffered its deadliest single loss of life in the entire Afghanistan war. 30 Americans and 1 Afghan ally were gone. Among them were 17 members of the Navy SEALs, many from the elite SEAL Team 6. It was a catastrophic blow to the Naval Special Warfare community, an organization that had been, just 3 months earlier, celebrated for its greatest triumph, the raid that killed Osama bin Laden. Many of the men on Extortion 17 were from the same squadron that had carried out that historic mission, though none of the actual raiders from that specific night were on board. The news of the crash sent shockwaves from the battlefields of Afghanistan to the highest levels of government in Washington, D.C., and into the quiet homes of families across America. For the families of the fallen, it was the dreaded knock on the door, the moment that every military spouse and parent fears. In Virginia Beach, Megan Houston's world shattered. Her husband, her partner, the father of her 3 young children, was not coming home. In the aftermath of the tragedy, as the nation mourned, controversy and debate began to surface. The sheer scale of the loss, particularly among the secretive and revered SEAL Team 6, led to intense scrutiny. Grieving families, desperate for answers, began to ask difficult questions. Why were so many elite operators packed onto a single, relatively slow-moving Chinook helicopter, making them a high-value, consolidated target? The Chinook is a reliable transport helicopter, but it's not a nimble gunship designed for high-threat insertions. Questions were raised about the rules of engagement. Initial reports suggested that an AC-130 gunship, which was providing overwatch, had the Taliban fighters in its sights but was denied permission to engage them before they could fire on the helicopter. This led to accusations that restrictive rules of engagement designed to prevent civilian casualties had put American lives at unnecessary risk. Military investigations later concluded that the gunship was not in a position to fire in time, but the debate has never fully subsided for some of the families. And, as often happens with events of this magnitude, conspiracy theories began to circulate. Some claimed the mission was a deliberate trap, that the Taliban were fed information about the flight. Others suggested it was an inside job, an act of revenge by Pakistan or other elements for the bin Laden raid. These theories, while providing simple answers to a complex and painful event, have been thoroughly debunked by official investigations. The military's official conclusion is that it was a tragic, but not conspiratorial event of war, a lucky shot by an enemy fighter in the right place at the right time. For the families, including the Houstons, navigating this landscape of grief, official reports, and public speculation was an agonizing process. They were forced to mourn in the spotlight, their personal tragedy becoming a national talking point. The controversy, while born of a desire for truth and accountability, often overshadowed the human element. The 30 brave men who boarded a helicopter on a dark night to go help their brothers in arms, and the families they left behind. Kevin Houston wasn't a pawn in a conspiracy. He was a hero who died doing his duty, a patriot who gave his life on a battlefield far from home, leaving a void that could never be filled. The downing of Extortion 17 on August 6, 2011, was more than just a single tragic event. It was a watershed moment in the post-9/11 era of American warfare, and the death of Kevin Houston and his comrades carried a historical and emotional significance that continues to reverberate today. Its most immediate consequence was the devastating blow it dealt to the naval special warfare community, particularly the tight-knit and secretive world of DevGru. In one night, the unit lost 15 of its finest operators. These were not rookies. They were seasoned veterans, men with years of experience and irreplaceable skills. The loss was a staggering blow to the unit's operational capability and, more importantly, to its morale. It was a brutal reminder, just 3 months after the triumph of the bin Laden raid, of the incredible risks these men faced every single day. The event pierced the aura of invincibility that had surrounded SEAL Team 6 in the public consciousness, revealing the profound vulnerability that lay beneath the surface of their extraordinary capabilities. For the American public, the loss was a sobering reality check. The war in Afghanistan had been going on for a decade, and for many, it had faded into the background of daily life. The story of Extortion 17 brought the human cost of that long war crashing back into the headlines. It put faces and names to the sacrifice, reminding the nation that real people, husbands, fathers, sons, and brothers, were still fighting and dying in distant lands. Kevin Houston's story, and the stories of the 29 other Americans lost that night, became a symbol of this enduring sacrifice. The historical significance of Kevin Houston's life and death is particularly poignant when viewed through the lens of his origins. Born and raised in the shadow of the Kennedy compound, he represents a powerful modern continuation of the ideal of service that JFK so famously championed. Kennedy's inaugural address in 1961 inspired a generation to enter public service, to ask what you can do for your country. 50 years later, Kevin Houston, a boy from Kennedy's own backyard, was living out the most extreme and selfless version of that call to action. His legacy is actively kept alive. He is interred with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery in the solemn ground of Section 60, a place that has become the final resting place for so many heroes of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Back home on Cape Cod, a memorial stone bears his name at his alma mater, Barnstable High School. And in the fitness community, his memory is honored through the Kevin Houston WOD, a grueling CrossFit hero workout of the day. This tradition of naming punishing workouts after fallen service members is a unique and powerful tribute, ensuring that athletes pushing their own physical limits will say his name and remember the warrior who pushed his to the absolute extreme. His legacy is one of action, courage, and a sacrifice that must never be forgotten. In the end, we are left with the image of a man who lived and died by a code of honor that seems to belong to another time. Kevin Houston was a product of modern America, a boy from Cape Cod who grew up to be an elite warrior, but his values, duty, humility, and unwavering loyalty to his comrades and his country are timeless. He wasn't born into a dynasty of power or privilege. He was born into the heart of the American middle class, and from it, he forged a life of extraordinary purpose. But Kevin Houston's legacy is not just one of tragedy. It is a powerful testament to the enduring spirit of American service. He was a boy from the land of Camelot who chose the path of the warrior over the politician, who answered a call to serve that was just as profound and infinitely more dangerous. His life reminds us that true heroism is often silent, found in the quiet resolve of a man doing a difficult job far from the glare of the spotlight. He now rests in Arlington, among the silent rows of white headstones, a guardian at peace. His story and his sacrifice compel us to remember that for every headline-making triumph, there are countless unsung acts of bravery, and that the safety we often take for granted is paid for by men like Kevin Houston, the quiet professionals, the humble patriots, the very best of us.